caught on camera a truck dumping thousands of gallons of sludge on an Oakland street that is notorious for people leaving their trash.
I don't know whether it's toxic. I don't know whether it's benign. I have no idea what it is.
We hear from a business owner who says this is a new low. Plus, we'll meet a North Bay couple whose home has survived 3 fires thanks to their own prevention efforts, but now they're worried their neighbors aren't pulling their weight.
I don't think I have unrealistic expectations. I just want them to follow the code.
Their call for the county to crack down, and later. As the Bay Area celebrates Juneteenth, we look at a special mentoring program with the focus on the next generation of Black men in Oakland.
Who's helping our young people navigate these modern times?
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Donchie. Juliette has the night off. We have covered countless stories about illegal dumping all across the city of Oakland. This is something slightly different, though. Security cameras caught this truck pouring some kind of sludge out of the back of it. That's never a good sign. Right onto the street there. Now, this happened in the middle of the night on Main Street in East Oakland off of 98th Avenue, about a half of a mile from 880. We have reported in the past on how the street has become a dumping ground for all kinds of trash, all kinds of things. Our Katie Nielsen heard from a business owner who said he is beyond fed up and says it is time for the city to do something.
So this is what's left of whatever it was that was dumped out of that truck as it was rolling down Main Street. Thousands of gallons of what appears to be concrete slurry going all the way down the street as far as you can see.
This street is a dumping ground for the city of Oakland. And of course, the city of Oakland will do nothing for this. They won't address the problem.
It was John Lewis's security cameras that caught a truck dumping thousands of gallons of sludge all over Main Street just before 2 o'clock this morning. He's had a high-end architectural glass business in the city for more than 50 years and says he's fed up with all the trash and dumping on his street. But this was a new low.
I don't know whether it's toxic. I don't know whether it's benign. I have no idea what it is.
So he called the council member who represents his district, Ken Houston.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ken Houston?
Ken, very nice to meet
pleasure,
you.
Pleasure.
I've been out here with my business since '91, you know, and it's just gotten continually worse.
I've been in office 151 days. This is spillover from that old administration. We got new administration that's not going to tolerate this nonsense. It's not.
Councilmember Houston says in addition to aggressive prosecution, there also needs to be more cleanup.
Who cares? You got graffiti vandalism. Let me just go in and dump it here. Nobody cares. That's the mindset.
Houston used to work as a general contractor and says he knows exactly what was happening on Main early this morning.
If somebody did a job, like a slurry job, concrete job, cement job, and then they washed it up, and then they just came and said, let me just dump it on the street instead of disposing it properly. This is a crime against this community. If you lived there with your new baby, how would you feel? If you was a business owner, how would you feel? We have to bring back law and order, and a person that does something like this should be prosecuted.
Lewis says he supports Houston's plan, but also questions whether anything will actually change because of the city's lack of response for years. He does joke there are some advantages to that.
The best thing about having a business in Oakland is that they leave you alone.
If the person responsible for this is caught and convicted, they could be facing some hefty fines, including paying the cost of cleanup and even jail time.
With fire danger ramping up over the next few days, some neighbors in East San Jose are feeling pretty relieved that their homes were spared. The ranch fire burned 92 acres yesterday afternoon, coming within 20 feet of someone's house. Firefighters fully contained the flames early this morning. San Jose crews got some help from CAL FIRE with 2 helicopters and 5 air tankers. Several neighborhoods were forced to evacuate. One of the homeowners, Jesus Garcia, told us that he saw the smoke from his front yard and was worried about evacuating his wife, who he says is sick and bedridden. Our chopper was overhead as firefighters helped get her to an ambulance and a wheelchair.
It helped me to put my wife in an ambulance, watching the news, and watching the fire very close to my house.
You can imagine the stress of that situation for him and his wife. Thankfully, nobody's home burned, but with more warm weather on the way, the San Jose Fire Department is asking neighbors to keep defensible space between their lawns and their homes to minimize the chances of a home catching on fire. Now, a couple in rural Napa County has done just that and then some. But they say their home is being threatened because of flammable vegetation on other people's properties. They told our John Ramos they want their neighbors and the county to step up fire prevention efforts.
When the Atlas fire roared through Napa County in 2017, the destruction it caused was a huge wake-up call for many Bay Area communities about fire prevention. But one group of homeowners living in this area say Napa County itself didn't seem to get the message. You have to excuse Chris and Carrie Frissette for being a bit obsessed about wildfire prevention. In 1981, not long after they bought their Napa County home, there was a fire the day after they had cleared weeds from their property.
My husband left when the hoses on the neighbor's property up front started to melt. And when he left, he said, "I'm sorry, Carrie, our house is gone." But it wasn't. So from that point on, for the last 45 years, we've been fire hardening the property. Every year we've done something.
Actually, they've pretty much done everything. Their home has been stuccoed with all the plants removed near the structure. They have 6,000 gallons of water in tanks, feeding 3 pumps with fire hoses for each. There are instructions for firefighters and a turnaround at the top of their driveway. And the property has been completely cleared of any low-lying vegetation that could send flames up into the trees. So when the 2017 Atlas fire tore through their neighborhood, guess whose house was saved?
And God bless them, because they parked in my driveway, pulled on my property and said, "We've nicknamed your house the Clean House. We can defend this."
But that doesn't mean they're out of the woods when it comes to fire danger. That's because this is what the neighbor's property looks like.
This is a 5-acre parcel. So there's a wooden barn and a wooden house, and the whole front end of it is in weeds.
Is there somebody living on this property?
Yes.
And they don't see the danger?
I don't think they care.
The back of the lot is even worse, with a solid wall of highly flammable Scotch broom growing about 40 feet from the Frissette's house. By law, there's supposed to be a 100-foot defensible space, so they called the county.
And when I said, "Well, gee, the code enforcer didn't show up," he said, "He's a very busy man." That was it.
That busy man was Deputy Fire Marshal Eric Hernandez, who for a long time was the only property inspector for the entire county.
For 3 or 4 years, it was myself. Then we went to 2. Last year, we had 4. And I mean, the reality is this. We're doing the best we can.
But another reality is that after years of complaining, the neighbor's weeds still haven't been removed.
And he was a good guy. He was a good guy, but you're limited when you have one person doing it. So I don't think that they're really doing a good job, because I'm looking around seeing not a good job done. Nobody's enforcing anything, because that's a mess.
Hernandez says the county has worked hard to remove fuels from the open areas, but getting people to remove vegetation from private property is another matter.
We facilitated a process where people submit a complaint via our website. And if it's something that, in our opinion, it's going to warrant a abatement warrant, then it gets brought up to my attention, and then we'll execute it.
How many times last year did you actually force someone to abate their property?
Oh my God, at the top of my head, I don't have an actual number, but it was in the tens. The beauty of this is that sometimes when people reach out to us and we issue the notice and we certified mail that copy, the property owners are getting back to us.
But that doesn't mean they're actually clearing the brush, at least not next to the Frissettes.
I mean, maybe I am obsessed with it, but I've been through 3 fires here, and there's more to come, guaranteed more to come. So you might as well be ready for it, because if you're not, you could lose your home.
Not to mention, you could cause other people to lose their homes as well.
The fire marshal says this year Napa has increased its staff to 6 fire inspectors to cover the 789 square miles of the county's rural areas. Looking live now towards Concord, part of the East Bay could see some strong wind gusts. PG&E says it will probably shut off power to some Northern California customers as soon as tomorrow, so that is something that we have to keep in mind. The areas under a possible power shutoff warning are shaded here in orange on this map, so take a close look at this, and they do include parts of Alameda, Contra Costa, and Santa Clara counties. Those shutoffs could actually last through the weekend, so we want to bring in Chief Meteorologist Paul Hagan with more on what we can expect from the winds, which could pose a threat here.
Yeah, that's going to be the main concern, is the wind speed. So let's take a look at those wind speeds that we expect by tomorrow afternoon. And most of the gusts are going to be in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range, but there are going to be some stronger gusts closer to the coast and a few locations inland where the gusts could exceed 30 miles an hour. Now, that's still below the threshold of a wind advisory. And one of the pieces of good news is that it's not going to be an offshore wind. The wind is going to be onshore. And while that doesn't carry abundant moisture, it at least carries a little bit from the Pacific Ocean. One of the factors that's helping us out. Also, the fact that the humidity levels aren't going to be critically low. We're looking for 5 to 10% for the critically low relative humidity values to really boost that fire threat. The lowest numbers are going to be interior portions of the North Bay and the East Bay, where the lowest numbers are going to be right around 20%. That could be a whole lot worse. Add to that the fact that we're also not looking at any critically dry fire fuels across the Bay Area. The fire fuel dryness is essentially right where it is supposed to be for this time of year. There's a statistic called energy release component that we track. The blue line is where we've been so far this year, and where we are right now is right where we're supposed to be, well out of that critically dry territory. So it all adds up to a fire danger that is not going to be off the charts at all. In fact, it's going to be very close to what's typical on a day-by-day basis for this time of year. The fire fuels are dry, but not overly dry. A couple areas that are mainly concerned about: interior portions of the East Bay, specifically the eastern slope of the Diablo Range, and then into the foothills to the east of San Jose. So we're going to be watching this. But again, this is kind of close to what's normal for this time of year. We'll put some more numbers on this coming up in the full forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. Hundreds of healthcare workers at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland walked off the job today. Union reps say workers are upset about cuts to their pay under new union contracts. The workers were previously employed by Children's Hospital Oakland and are transitioning to UC employment in July. The National Union of Healthcare Workers says that will require employees to pay more toward health and retirement benefits, leading to less take-home pay. They say that could ultimately impact patient care.
It's going to impact our patients because they're going to get lesser care. We're here to fight for the children.
We actually fought really hard to get better pensions, to get better take-home pay, to get certain safeguards that are in for paid vacation time. We're actually losing a lot. So to me, it's stressful, but I'm willing to fight for what's right.
UCSF says some of its outpatient offices are closed because of the strike, but the main hospital in Oakland is still open. Now, in a statement, UCSF said some take-home pay may change because currently many employees pay nothing toward their health insurance or retirement. Under UC employment, they will contribute just as their colleagues across the UCSF system do. In exchange, they will gain access to far more valuable comprehensive medical and retirement benefits. Still ahead at 6 o'clock, more than a half a dozen men charged in the latest jewelry heist, the largest jewelry heist in American history. Wait till you hear the details about that. Investigators say that it started right here in the Bay Area. And as the Bay Area celebrates Juneteenth, we highlight an organization in Oakland dedicated to mentoring the next generation of young black men.
We're working with young boys to help them develop as individuals.
Seven men from Southern California are now facing federal charges in what prosecutors are describing as the largest jewelry heist in U.S. history. You might remember this from a few years ago. It happened at a rest stop along the Grapevine in 2022. Thieves stole upwards of $100 million worth of jewelry from the bank of a Brinks semi-truck. The truck had actually just left a jewelry store in a jewelry show that was happening in San Mateo, on its way to another show in the city of Pasadena. Prosecutors say that the suspects tailed it to a rest stop in Lebec, and that is when they struck. Thieves got away with 24 bags of gold, gems, and luxury watches. According to the DOJ, some of the jewelry that was taken during the heist was later recovered during arrests. They are now facing robbery, conspiracy, and theft charges and could spend up to 35 years in prison if they are convicted. All right, tomorrow is Juneteenth. The federal holiday commemorates the day in 1865 when a group of African Americans in Galveston, Texas, finally learned that they were free, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. But the deep harm of slavery did not magically end with the institution. Devin Feely joins us now to highlight a group that is focused on repairing some of that harm. Devin.
Yeah, Sarah, the legacy of slavery just hung over the Black community like a creeping shadow for generations. So we're going to take a closer look at a special mentoring program in the city of Oakland. The leaders of that program believe that the key to building a better future lies in reclaiming their people's past.
The drums echo with history.
We offer them support in whatever it is they're going through in life.
The rhythms reminding and binding us to a proud past, to African ancestry, to a time untarnished by the pain, by the stain of slavery.
We're working with young boys to help them develop as individuals, to help them develop their leadership skills, to help them develop their learning skills, to help them develop their spiritual and moral skill.
Gregory Hodge is the CEO of the Brotherhood of Elders Network, a special mentoring organization in the city of Oakland. His goal is to repair the frayed fabric of community by connecting young Black boys to their African American elders.
People get exposed to the wisdom associated with solving life challenges.
Hodge has been involved with the Brotherhood since its founding roughly 15 years ago. He's been a mentor and a friend to Kevin Butler since he was invited to join the organization 6 years ago.
They saw my heart and, where I was coming from. I saw their hearts and where they were coming from in terms of being able to unite on that mission of uplifting the community and fostering environments for Black boys and young men to thrive.
Butler said he'd lost his grandparents around the time that he joined, that the bonds of brotherhood helped fill the void left by their loss. And within the organization, he found the encouragement and the guidance to start his own business.
It's like, yeah, we come from different backgrounds, we come from different generations. And of course, it's easy to slip into that habit of let's focus on how all the different ways that we're different, But when we go to the retreat and we're having these deep conversations and we're being vulnerable with each other, all that kind of fades away.
The Brotherhood is now trying to build on that foundation of community and culture, connecting with other like-minded organizations in Oakland. They recently published the first edition of the Black Youth Development Book.
I asked myself, who's helping our young people navigate these modern times?
Kevin Hill says he hopes the book amplifies the Brotherhood's message, putting information at parents' fingertips.
I see it as very important and part of our responsibility to make sure that our young people have culturally affirming programming and mentors and adults that they're exposed to so that they can grow up with cultural pride.
Pride and purpose and a sense of history, the elders say, is the key to the community's future.
People say this all the time, but change happens at the speed of trust. And trust is based on healthy, strong relationships, in my opinion.
The Brotherhood recently extended their mentorship program into a few middle schools in the city of Oakland. They had previously focused on young men of high school age and older. Sarah.
All right, Devin, thank you so much for that reporting. We appreciate it. The sun bear at the Oakland Zoo is going to town on some barbecue corn. Are we in line for barbecue weather this weekend? Coming up, Paul is back with a look at the forecast. All right, so I think we all know by now we need to be prepared for some wind.
Yeah.
I think maybe what we don't know is why it's happening now.
Right. It's kind of typical for this time of year. These storm systems kind of get close to us and just squeeze the atmosphere, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So our little warm-up today, that's it for that warm-up. Yeah, it's going away now. Let's take a look at the big picture perspective here, and we're going to look at the whole West Coast all the way up to the Gulf of Alaska. And let me turn on the satellite perspective, the loop over the last 6 hours. And there's a big storm system swirling away off the coast of British Columbia. This is going to move to the east as systems in the northern hemisphere, this part of the northern hemisphere do. The bulk of its energy, its moisture isn't going to be heading towards us. It's going to be heading towards the Pacific Northwest, but it's going to be close enough that it squeezes the atmosphere over the entire West Coast. And and that results in the gusty winds that we are going to experience over the next couple of days. Now, the good news is the winds, while they are going to be strong, they're still going to be onshore, and that could be a whole lot worse. Let's get into how strong the winds are going to be with a look at our hour-by-hour wind gusts as we head through the next couple of days. They've been still noticeable today, but they kick it up a notch tomorrow. We're going to see widespread gusts in the 25 to 35 mile an hour range, even farther inland, and at the coast, we're going to have some 40-plus mile-an-hour gusts, especially around Bodega Bay. And we go up another notch on top of that on Friday. More gusts even farther inland that are going to exceed 30 miles an hour. And that's the just flat-out wind speed that is the major concern. But when we look at the fire danger index, you're not going to see any values that are off the charts. This lets us combine all the fire weather factors into one statistic: the wind speed, the wind direction, humidity, dryness of the fire fuels. And ordinarily, in the middle of June, we top out around 4 or 5 on this 0 to 10 scale. And that's largely where we're going to top out tomorrow. There are going to be a few isolated spots that have some higher values, especially in the hills around Vacaville and in the hills of northern Sonoma County and in the higher elevations of the East Bay, a few values around 5 or 6. But it's a similar story on Friday. Even with the winds being even stronger, most of the values in this fire danger index are going to be very close to what's kind of normal for the middle of June. So it's certainly a threat that needs to be monitored whenever the winds get that strong. But even the strongest winds are going to be below the threshold of a wind advisory from the National Weather Service, and there's no red flag warning in effect. And the temperatures are going to be helping us out as well, because they're not going to be as warm as they were today. Made it up into the 90s in Livermore and Concord. That's still where you are right now, with upper 80s in Santa Rosa, upper 70s right now in San Jose. A little bit more reasonable with temperatures in the 60s in San Francisco and Oakland. A little early taste of summer, even though today's still technically the second to last day of spring. Dog walking forecast for tomorrow. Keep a good grip on your lightweight pups. This is Lola from Alameda. The wind is going to be rippling her fur tomorrow, but again, no worries about the heat that we had today away from the water. Temperatures in Alameda only topping out in the mid-60s tomorrow afternoon, and with the wind kicking up already during the morning, the fog isn't going to be a major factor. Let's go to the floor map here and simulate that fog on Futurecast, and you're not going to see a lot of it as we head through tonight, a little bit right along the coast. But largely, we're going to be seeing clear skies with the increasing wind speeds stirring the atmosphere around. And even though it's going to push that marine air farther inland, we're not going to be seeing the cloud cover developing associated with that marine air. Temperatures are going to be back to below average levels, about 4 to 8 degrees below normal tomorrow. Again, one of the factors helping us out with the fire threat. 70s in the Santa Clara Valley, mostly 70s east of the Oakland Hills, with the warmest spots around 80 degrees near Fairfield, Antioch, and Brentwood. Also the warmest spots in the North Bay, getting up into the 80s with mostly 60s around the bay and back to the 50s along the coast. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast, and we will start with inland parts of the Bay Area, where temperatures are going to go back up after a couple of cool days, but only to what's normal for this time of year by Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The warmest day will be next Wednesday, when highs will climb up into the upper 80s. Temperatures around the Bay also doing a little up and down the next couple of days, and then back up to normal over the weekend. And at the coast, it's going to be a similar story, with temperatures hovering around 60 degrees instead.
All right, Paul, thanks. When we come back, the San Jose Earthquakes are looking for a buyer. What we're learning about plans to sell the club. The Golden State Valkyries are taking on Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever tomorrow night. You can watch that right here on KPIX, but you can also win a chance to see the showdown in person. To enter, all you have to do is go to kpix.com/contest and enter the code word FEVER. Big Major League Soccer news out of the South Bay. The Earthquakes are going up for sale. John Fisher, who of course also just moved the A's out of Oakland, has owned the Earthquakes since 2007, bringing the team back after a 2-year hiatus. The previous version of the Quakes had relocated to Houston. Now Fisher has hired an investment firm to help him sell a controlling share of the club. The team owns and operates PayPal Park, which is also the home stadium for Bay FC. We'll see you back here at 7.